Whew, I'm so glad it's hump day. It's been a busy week. Um, how you doing, Tay? Good. Me too. So last month we spent the month talking about dating in real time. Um, and again, just want everybody to be more mindful of how to be present, how to be authentic, how to be um ready for your relationships and authentically you, and be presenting your authentic self when you're out here in these dating streets. And just kind of beware of, be flexible, uh, travel with grace for you and the other person, and just be honest and transparent about who you are, what you want, and your expectations during the dating phase or whatever. um, so this month we're going to be talking about traditional marriage in a non-traditional world. And why, you ask, is this important to me, to us, to the discussion, to the community? Um, Basically, we were talking one day, and it occurred to me that um, people, we go through cycles with marriage. People tend to want traditional marriages, but then they don't want what comes with traditional marriage. They want to shy away from how traditional marriage was built. So, as Pat and I were talking, it occurred to me that we live in a non traditional world, and the role of marriage, the thoughts on marriage, the way people pursue marriage or not pursue marriage, has changed because society is no longer quote unquote traditional. That does not mean that there are not people in society that still go along with and value traditional values. But we got to talking, and I said, well, why don't we just make that a topic, and we start some discussions about what marriage really is supposed to be, what marriage looks like, what traditional marriage means, um, and how, if you align with that and want to align with that, how do you solidify your marriage in a society that is ever changing, a society that isn't quote unquote traditional. And so that's how this topic came about. So tonight, we're just going to kind of do a little deep dive into what is marriage, what is traditional marriage, and what happens if you do or do not subscribe to those roles, and how you kind of solidify um, having a traditional marriage in a society that is ever changing and no longer considered a traditional society. So, what traditional marriage is when we say traditional marriage, what we're really talking about is a marriage that is steeped in traditional marriage gender based roles. So um, in a traditional marriage, basically what that looks like is you have the man is the provider and the woman is the nurturer. And in a traditional marriage, um, what you tend to see is Um, it's traditionally recognized by religious and societal norms. Traditional marriage is based on the emphasis of established gender roles. So when we talk about established gender roles and family lineages and community ties, what we're talking about is a traditional gender role being man is masculine, woman is feminine. Man is provider, protector, woman is nurturer, and she makes sure the home is taken care of. The man is working, the woman is at home caring for the house. So that's what you think about when you really are considering what a traditional marriage is. Um, it has a diverse array of practices. You usually have a cultural, some kind of ceremony takes place. Um, you know, you walk down the aisle, you get married in a church, traditional. That's what it is. Oftentimes the families meet up, they know each other. You have rituals that go along with the families meeting each other. There's an engagement. There's a lot of times there is the man asking for the woman's hand in marriage. Um, then, there can be ceremonial dances. There can be ceremonial practices like jumping the broom. So that's where traditional marriages come into play. Um, when people think about traditional marriages, they also tie that to your religious beliefs. So there are a lot of different religions in the world, but the traditional marriage is going to go back to some form of religious belief and the religious framework that is taught um, regarding marriage. What that means is, it's monogamous relationship. It's structural and it complements the parties. The values center around we're getting married so we can procreate. We have a shared spiritual belief, a shared spiritual practice, and there's a spiritual life that the couple is involved in. And it is specific to mutual obligations between the spouses. So, in a historical context, um, you want to think about a traditional marriage basically operates within the society, and there are clearly delineated roles for the man and the woman. So now let's talk about what those roles are in a traditional marriage. Um, in a traditional marriage, the husband's role is he is the head of the household. He's primarily responsible for the finances and how the family looks to external figures. The woman, then, her role is to be responsible for the domestic duties like child rearing, managing the household, um, and making sure that um, you know, everything in the household is running correctly. It's clean, the kids are clean, the husband's clean, neat, ironed, she's polished, he's polished. And so that's what the traditional marriage entails. We're gonna take a little break real quick. And we'll be right back.
Are you looking to change your financial picture? Let us help you secure your financial house. Call us today for your appointment at 214-533-5307. That's 214-533-5307. Or email us at divinelegacyfinancial@gmail.com. We look forward to helping you reach your financial goals. We secure financial homes one family at a time.
All right, Pete, and we're back. So, um, so here we go. We were talking about what traditional marriage is. So I wanted to lay the foundation because as we have our guests coming in this month, I want you to understand how traditional marriage is set up and where they may be coming from as they're speaking to you this month. Um, so let's talk about um, legal definitions versus tradition. The legal definition of marriage is very, very secular. Um, and so the term traditional marriage is specifically used to advocate for or identify um, legal and social restriction of marriage to opposite sex couples. And it emphasizes biological and procreative aspects of the union. So keep that in mind too as we continue to discuss throughout the month traditional marriage in a non traditional world. As the world has, I guess we want to say, developed, as societal norms have relaxed, as more, I don't, I guess the correct say way is, um, we gender neutral, gender fluidness, gender uh I don't even know the right word, but basically our society is not um leaning more toward what the traditional view of marriage is. That's the best way to put it. Um so basically the traditional marriage it still exists because people still believe in traditional marriage. However, because our society continues to develop and things change um, in relation to what's accepted and what's acceptable, what is happening is the tradition of marriage is staying, but in our non traditional world, things are blending more to become more accepting of how people want to operate in their specific relationships and what they want their relationships to look like. So, what that means is they may still hold on to what the marriage looks like, but the roles and responsibilities and the things that are necessarily termed traditional roles. I can't see my comments. uh, yes, Auntie Win. God's way is the right way, and people choose what they want to do. Yes, people choose what they want to do. And so, and what's up, Auntie? And so what happens when we are in a non-traditional world, people have started to choose exactly what they want to do. And it does not necessarily tie back to what the traditional definition of marriage is and was in the past. So when you think about currently in the society in which we live, you have couples that have redefined their roles. Like it used to be really looked bad upon if the mom was working and the dad was at home. And so now that's not the case. Um, People are choosing who cares for the kids. People are choosing who cleans the house. People are choosing who goes out and wins the money for the home. People are choosing, are there going to be dual incomes? In the traditional world, it was dad goes out and works and provides, mom stays home, take care of the house. In the non-traditional world, quote unquote, um, that's no longer the case. You may have both parents working, both spouses are working, both are equally contributing to the household. You may have both of them splitting the duties when it comes to cleaning, cooking, making sure the house is cool, making sure each other is cool, making sure the kids are cool. You may have both of them participating in the rearing of the kids. You may have the woman is the breadwinner and the dad, the father is the caregiver. You may have um uh I just lost my train of thought. You may have anything in the non-traditional quote unquote marriage. um a lot of the modernized ceremonies now are not rooted in spiritual, religious, or cultural practices. They're less ceremonial. um just speaking from experience and just from my own point of view, I could care less about a big fancy wedding. They're fun, they're exciting. I love to eat. The cake is good, but if that's not for you, it's just not for you. I have friends that have chosen never to get married, and they are in loving, committed relationships that have stood the test of time. I'm talking 20 plus years or more. I have friends that got married at the courthouse or in their own backyard, wasn't no big fanfare, and their marriages have lasted 20, 30 years. I have had friends that went the traditional route, church wedding, marriage counseling, and they're 20, 30 years in, everything is cool. So it just depends these days what it is that you want for your relationship. Um, the gender roles have been reestablished and reimagined in current non-traditional quote unquote marriage. Um, Again, we want to go back to in a traditional marriage, it is very gender role based. In current marriages, it is not gender role based. It's more household equity. So you're managing what your marriage looks like between domestic labor and career trajectories. We negotiate that up front to make sure our household works correctly. Um, we don't necessarily walk down the aisle. Again, not, whatever floats your boat on how you get married. If you get married, or are you in a committed long-term relationship? um Even if you do choose to get married, people really, really tailor their ceremony based on what their preferences are, based on what their wants and desires are, based on what their religious beliefs are. Because there are people who they may be very religious, but they don't believe in the ceremonial aspects of getting married. So you tailor the ceremony or the pomp and circumstance, so you will, to what your needs are. Um, this term of fusion marriages keeps coming up in this society. And what that means is that's when, and we used to call it, you just met someone from a different background, y'all fell in love, you got married, but now it's called fusion marriages. So your cultural background and upbringing is different, your religious background is different, and so basically what happens in a fusion marriage is both parties are celebrated. It doesn't matter that they come from different cultural or religious backgrounds. um, you just mix the various traditions to represent the couple that is getting married. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't think that that makes your marriage non-traditional, but you know, when people keep referring to traditional marriage, they are referring to Christian based man and woman specific gender roles. Man is provider, woman is nurturer. That's what traditional marriage still means to a lot of people. Um, Alternative marriage models. So in this society, we have, again, whatever floats your boat. And as my auntie pointed out, God's way is the right way, and people just decide what they want to do. So now we have open marriages. We have what they call LAT, living apart together. Um, that's really interesting to me. We're gonna talk about that some more. And then we just have co-parenting partnerships. So let's talk about an open marriage. An open marriage is where the partners are married, but they agree that even though that they are the primary partnership, they are both free to explore other romantic sexual connections outside of their marriage. I'm not a fan of that, but people do what they do to make their situations work. I just think that opens up a whole Pandora's box for no reason. When you should just be open and honest about the sexual things you want to do, and do them with your spouse. But open marriages is a big thing. LAT, so lat or living apart together. That's where the couples are committed to each other. They remain committed to each other, but they live in separate households for their independence and personal space. Um, I kind of agree with living apart together. However, I think that gets a bad rap. I remember when I was in it was either 8th grade or high school. I can't remember which one, but and I'm not going to say my school cuz I don't want to put it out there like that. But I had a teacher who she resided here and her husband resided elsewhere. But it was because she was a working teacher and he had a job that required him to be in another city. Now, while I understood what that was, when I'm bringing that into context today, people would say that that was not, well, back then it was kind of taboo because you people are supposed to live under the same roof in the same household with their spouse, but it worked for them. It wasn't that they never were together. It was during the work week. They were in their respective cities doing their respective jobs, and they planned time to spend together as a couple, and that worked for them. We call Then it kind of morphed into long distance relationships. When you're in a long distance relationship requires the same thing. Usually when you're a long distance relationship, that means you're not residing in the same city as your partner. So that takes planning, it takes intentionality, it takes purpose, it takes dedication and commitment. Um, you know, Long distance relationships can work. I know people who have made them work for years. And then let's talk about lat. I'm just gonna say living apart together, lat. So the example that I'm going to throw out is the wonderful actress Shirley Roth. When she came out and said that she and her husband reside in two different locations, two different states, people lost their minds. Um, hey, Coley, people lost their minds. People lost their minds because they couldn't understand why she was okay with living apart from her husband. And again, it has to do with their respective careers, their respective jobs, their respective the things that they can do to still make their relationship work. Just because they are living apart does not mean that they are not committed to each other, does not mean that they are not faithful to one another, does not mean that they are not intentional about each other, doesn't mean that they are not purposed in their relationship goals. It simply means that they made the decision that she didn't have to give up her work and he didn't have to give up his work. So they will maintain separate um, residencies for the benefits of their careers, but they still are committed and intentional and in love with each other and the goals that they have set for their relationship. So I think that people give living apart together a bad rap, but if you are with someone and you know that that is your person, why should they give up their career just because y'all decided to get married? I'm just saying, people do what works for them, as my auntie said. People do what works for them. So don't just throw stones at people because they made a choice to do what works for them in their marriage. Let's talk about co-parenting partnerships. So basically, when you are in a co parenting partnership, you have agreed to parent your children's. See, I can't even talk, Tay. To parent your children and raise your children, um, and you share the household logistics rather than a romantic romance. So in co parenting, they could be still in the house together, or they could be residing separately. But the goal of the relationship is to parent and steward the children. Um, so now let's talk about what this all means for this month's discussion. Um, Traditional marriage in a non-traditional world. We are living in a time where things change fast. People do things, as my aunt said, what they want to do. They don't necessarily follow traditional values rooted in religious beliefs, cultural beliefs. They just kind of set their marriage up to do what it do, how they want it to do. As we continue this discussion this month, we will be talking to couples that are managing to have a traditional marriage in the changing society in which we live. And we'll be talking about what that marriage looks like and how they remain so rooted and connected in traditional values. So as you tune in this month, I'm going to ask you all to have open minds, have open hearts, and don't be judgmental. Just because it's not what you would do for you doesn't mean that it's not there's not value in what people are presenting and how people have chosen to make their marriages work. So with that being said, that's all for tonight. See? Short show. Um, y'all keep Pat lifted up. He's under the weather and it's a really bad case of the flu. Um, but he'll be back next week. And we'll see y'all next week. Same time, same channel. Traditional marriage in a non traditional world. Peace.